art is weird. It comes in many forms, at times taking inspiration from others before it, but every so often we get the anomaly, an art form so far from the norm that whether you're a fan or not, you have to at least give it a look, a side eye, and whisper to yourself, nah, that had to be high. And if you haven't had that moment yet, just watch Evangelion. It's a form of art that seems so abstract to what we consider normal that at times it can feel like the artist just threw a few blotches on the canvas at random and called it art. But a true anomaly takes an immense amount of care, effort, and beauty. Cowboy Bebop is beautiful. It's a far cry from other shows of its generation, but in a genius way. The series was built to incorporate something for everyone. You want dystopia? You want western? You want mobster? We got that. Cowboy Bebop was made to be a melting pot of genres, which is why its episodic nature works so well. In general, I've almost never been a fan of episodic series. There's something about the idea that the right now has zero effect on what's going to happen in the future, that no matter what, you will be okay, that just doesn't sit well with me. Obviously, there are genres like comedy and cartoons where this works to their advantage, but when plot is so integral to building out your characters and the story you're trying to tell, giving it in an episodic fashion almost never goes well to me, and almost feels like it's the lazier route compared to its linear counterpart. So when I tell you that it works for Cowboy Bebop, just know that I mean it. It gives the series the opportunity to delve into many different genres, every episode giving us a new taste of the world of Cowboy Bebop, which is what makes it abstract. At the time, giving a single, cohesive, linear storyline was the way to attract the masses in the anime world. So Cowboy Bebop went against the grain, not in a way that's meant to be different, but with a true passion to build worlds within other worlds. This is not an easy feat to accomplish by any means, and gives me a higher level of respect than ever for Cowboy Bebop, but it truly makes you think, how did they do it? And so in my rewatch of the series, I try to figure out why this project worked out as well as it did. And by episode 3, it was clear. Niggas really thought I was about to watch an entire series for a video. I don't make nearly enough to do that. Cowboy Bebop is amazing at the intangibles. These intangibles have so much care and dedication put into them that it glues the gaps between genres and the episodic nature perfectly. But to highlight a few, I guess we can start with the music. Bebop, a style of jazz that developed around the 40s. It's a genre of music that feels so foreign to what we hear today, but goddamn does it sound good. Bebop is the central theme of music that you can count on being in almost every episode you watch of Cowboy Bebop, narrating not only the emotions of specific scenes, but also the pace of certain scenarios. This subgenre of jazz is styled by a single characteristic, the swing, and yet it's not your average swing. It's defined by fast tempos, asymmetrical phrasing, intricate melodies, rhythm sections, and an abundance of terms that frankly are way above my pay grade to understand them. But in practice, it's not that hard to explain at all. Bebop tells its own story, at times superseding what's happening on the screen. The track dancing life into the characters' movements, creating a colorful portrayal of what music can do to enhance the story. In its entirety, the soundtrack of Cowboy Bebop could be its own solo art piece. Every episode features a new idea of music that fuses perfectly into the at times chaotic but also peaceful series. I think it's what's able to make viewers stick from episode 1. Time and time again, it feels as though modern series create soundtracks because they have to. But Cowboy Bebop created a soundtrack because they wanted to. It's just as integral as anything else in the series, and the massive fan bases for the OST tells that tale. An obvious example is Tank, a generational piece of music that to this day still stands as a mecca of openings throughout all of anime. Not only is it one of my favorite songs, but it also feels like it's made its way into so many different cultures. But that's what happens when you choose the latter and make music that matters. It breathes its own life and can't be contained by being just an anime opening. The swing in Bebop is what dictates the story, but it emphasizes an even more important aspect of the show, which are the fights. The fights in Cowboy Bebop would not be what they are if it wasn't for the jazz foundations of the show. But it's not just the music. The second intangible can't be undermined: the animation. This show looks really good, and it's to no surprise. Sunrise is a stellar company whose works on projects like Gintama and Code Geass have cemented their place as a top-class anime studio. But it's obvious that Cowboy Bebop is their greatest work, and it's no shock as to why. Cowboy Bebop puts a subtle yet strong emphasis on its fights. So fluid in their movements and choreography, it's insane how stunning these scenes become. Rivaling a lot of modern animation, it truly is an art that grows with time. But a show that showcases their animation skills exclusively within fights can only go so far. Most of the time, it's the glue that's in between that really makes the animation stick, because that's what truly makes a show look good, making the unnecessary necessary, at least in my opinion. Landscapes, moving aircraft pieces, bustling cities, making their animation breathe life into the world they create makes a true difference in how their message comes through. It's somewhat of a lost art, as a lot of older shows seem to have perfected this idea. Evangelion has some of the most creative and aesthetic landscape portraits as simple transitions between scenes. Studio Ghibli puts an unprecedented amount of details and creativity into the world that surrounds its characters, creating a level of immersion that can only be attained by their films. I'd like to think that Cowboy Bebop showcases a fusion of both, not only able to tap into the intricacies and small details of futuristic machines, but also able to capture the setting of a not so far off dystopia. They made the unnecessary details a staple of their animation, and it boosts everything in the show by tenfold. Animation and music are the foundations, but honestly, there's one true intangible that the show wouldn't be the same without, and that's...
Jet, do you know that there are 3 things that I particularly hate?
Really?
Kids, animals, and women with attitudes.
Oh.
So tell me, Jet, why do we have all 3 of them neatly gathered in our ship?
The crew. Everyone in Cowboy Bebop fits. Jet, he takes on the role of the captain. Forced to make the difficult decisions, he remains the most level-headed member of the crew, always focused and always reliable. And yet, with all of his wisdom, he's still just as lost as all of us. Jet's character is mature. Chaos will always ensue, and there's nothing you can do to avoid it. So instead, he tries to control that chaos to the best of his ability, because being mature is being in control of yourself, since at the end of the day, that's all you'll ever have control over. Ed. Brought onto the crew as the tech-savvy hacker, Ed is a step above human. They see themselves not as Ed the child, but Ed, an omnipotent kid who has transcended the limitations of a normal human. A 7-foot-tall basketball
pro, Hindu guru, drag queen alien.
Right. Ed's goofy, innocent personality has the power to cut through the serious dynamic that the rest of the crew bring to the ship, and it's only something you realize until it's gone, making Ed easily one of the most lovable characters of the series. Faye, a very stubborn, annoying prick of a character, Hard P. Her entire personality revolves around her being a woman and gambling, literally the most unlikable character in the crew. And yet, it doesn't take long to fall into the same allure that all of the members of the Bebop have in common. In her mind, making connections can only be seen as setbacks to her freedom. That is until she realizes the reason why she's scared of making true connections. From past to present, Faye is an outcast, never able to belong at nobody's fault but her own, because subconsciously, she pushes these connections away in fear of loss, learning the hard way that you can only be hurt if you care. And yet she does care. Time and time again, whether by coincidence or fate, she finds her way back to the ship just for it to be taken away again, stuck in a sadistic loop that is her life. Ein's just a dog, that's really it. And Spike, well, he's just Spike. In truth, that's probably the only way to truly capture who his character is. He is undoubtedly the coolest main character in all of anime, for one reason alone. He doesn't think. The past doesn't matter and the future is just a far off reality. All that matters to him is the present, since that's all he can see.
Look at my eyes, Faye. I've been seeing the past in one eye and the present in the other. So I thought I could only see patches of reality, never the whole picture.
Spike is kind, formidable, he's whatever you need him to be, and in that sense of adaptability, it mirrors the show in a sense. He has to be adaptable in order to fit the many different genres that are represented. Had the main character been anything else, I'm sure the story wouldn't have come off the same way as it does now, and it all makes sense. Shinichiro Watanabe, the director of Cowboy Bebop, explains his creative process for the story in 2 steps. First, he designed Spike, then he designed everything around him. The story was meant for Spike and vice versa, which is why I feel feels like at every turning point, every climax, every song choice, and every development, Spike fits. This show does something to me, and on every rewatch I'm reminded time and time again why. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but through every planet, every bounty, and every story, we're given a piece of art within a piece of art, a truly abstract concept that turns its weirdness into its greatest strength. In a world of imitations, Cowboy Bebop's originality shines brighter than ever, becoming something that seems infinite, something that feels timeless.